Marvel Legends were first released in 2002 and we are fast approaching the 20th anniversary in 2022. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 most produced characters in the Marvel Legends line. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Jacob's Toys. Thanks very much for tuning into the channel. Please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things. All support is very much appreciated. So Marvel Legends, they were first released in 2002, and if you want to check out, I have done a video on the brief history of Marvel Legends, but with 2022 coming up, we are obviously approaching the 20th anniversary of the line. Now, we have seen one Captain America figure released in the kind of the anniversary style packaging. We've seen a tease of a logo, so it's obvious that there's going to be a few more ahead coming up to 2022. Now, obviously, we've got HasCon coming up as well, so this video and the numbers in the video are obviously ahead of any potential releases or reveals at HasCon. So, based on the figures that we've had since 2002, right back in the Toy Biz days, right through to the most recent reveal of that Captain America in the 2022 anniversary line, what I've done is I've compiled a list of the top 10 most produced characters in Marvel Legends. Now, in community groups, it is quite often a common discussion about how many versions of a character that we've had, etc. So that kind of inspired me to go back and take a look. And what I did is I actually used the archive that's on my website on jacobstoys.co.uk, and you can check that out yourself. But what I did is I went back through the archive and actually just manually counted each of the characters. Now, there were a few conditions in regards to how I kind of came about this. So let's take a character like Venom, for example. There's been a whole ton of symbiotes that have been released, but I didn't count them as Venoms. I only actually counted up the actual Venom characters as opposed to just symbiotes. And the same goes for characters like SpiderMan, for example. You know, if there's a Spider-Man that's classed as a Spider-Man, then that was counted. But if it was like a Spider-Woman or something like that, then obviously it wasn't, or a Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, then that wasn't counted. So this basically is based on the characters. What I also did as well is when it comes to things like the Incredible Hulk, I didn't count a Bruce Banner figure, I only counted the Incredible Hulk figure. So yes, there were a few conditions. And one I will point out as well is AntMan, for example. We've had quite a few AntMan figures, but we've also had kind of miniature versions of him as accessories as well. And I did actually count those as AntMan figures because of the nature of the character. So anyway, without any further ado, I do want to get into the list. But before we do, I just want to have 3 honorary mentions of characters that just made the kind of the last 3. So without further ado, let's get into those. So in 13th place, I have Storm. Storm has had 7 figures released since 2002, putting her in 13th place. In 12th place, with 8 figures released, it's surprisingly Magneto. I actually did think he was going to rank higher in this, but he did come in there with only 8 figures released. In place number 11, again, another surprising one for me, was Wasp. And she's actually only had 10 figures released in the entire 20 years that Marvel Legends have been going. So I was really surprised about that, especially considering we had kind of 3 of her in one wave in the early days. In number 10, with a total of 11 figures in the 20-year span, you have Venom. Now, Venom is a very popular character. However, in the early days, in the kind of Toy Biz days, we actually only got a couple of Venoms, and they came in box sets and stuff. So they were, you know, few and far between in the early days, which is probably one of the reasons why he ranks so low down on the list. However, in recent years, and obviously with the rise of things like the Venom films being so popular, we have had obviously more Venoms and actual whole waves produced with the Venom logo, even though it did consist of various different symbiotes, Carnage, etc. So yeah, so in 10th place with 11 figures, you have Venom. In 9th place with 12 figures, we have AntMan. Now, AntMan has been a popular one throughout the years, and as I said, we have had various versions of him. Now, one thing that I did that, you know, people may or may not disagree with, is that I didn't count any of the kind of Giant Man figures, actually only the Ant-Man figures. So I did count the Bath because that was Ant-Man. He wasn't called Giant Man in the film, he was still called Ant-Man. So the MCU Ant-Man, that was actually the larger Bath figure. I did count as AntMan because he didn't go by the name of Giant Man. However, the Giant Man kind of builder figures that we got in the Toy Biz days and the ones in the Comic Con specials, etc., were actually labelled as Giant Man, so I didn't count them. So in joint 9th place, actually, we had Cyclops as well. Cyclops has also had 12 figures over the years. We've had various different costumes, and obviously we've seen a rise in popularity recently with some of the X-Men waves, but actually only 12 figures produced in all of that time, which did surprise me, but puts him in joint 9th place with AntMan. In 8th place, with a total of 16 figures, is Black Widow. Now this doesn't surprise me, obviously with the popularity of the film recently, we obviously have seen a lot more versions of Black Widow, and we've definitely seen a handful of MCU versions in recent years, which definitely bumped her numbers up to put her into 8th place. Black Widow is a fantastic character, she's one of my favourites, and so I'm really pleased that we've got all these different versions. However, a lot of the versions did come in recent years. So in 8th place, we have a total of 16 figures, we have Black Widow. Now in 7th place, he is one of my favourites with a total of 20 figures, surprisingly, is Deadpool. Now I did think Deadpool was going to rank a lot higher because for a certain period of time, we seem to just get a Deadpool after a Deadpool after a Deadpool. But actually he's only had 20 figures produced in the entire span of Marvel Legends. So 20 figures over 20 years isn't actually that many. I mean, if you spread it out, it's one a year, which did surprise me. But yeah, so in 7th place is everybody's favourite Merc with a mouth, Deadpool. Now in 6th place, with a total of 23 figures, is Thor. Now, obviously, with the MCU and the comic books, we have had a number of different versions of Thor released. But it is worth saying that in 2011, the only Marvel Legend that was released was that of Thor. It was the Comic Con exclusive Thor figure. So I'm not surprised that he comes in where he does. He's obviously a big favourite with fans. However, I think my favourite version of him is the 80th anniversary version that we got recently. But yeah. In 6th place with 23 figures is Thor. So now into the top 5. In 5th position with a total of 28 figures, it is Hulk. Obviously, again, with the MCU and with the comic book, he is a popular character in both sides of the franchise. So he has obviously had a lot of figures. We've had him as builder figures, we've had him as deluxe, we've had him as standalone single card release as well. But yeah, so with 28 figures in 5th place is Hulk. So here's where the numbers really do jump up. In 4th place with a total of 42 figures, we have Captain America. Now Captain America has seen various different versions of himself released over the years, and he is definitely a fan favourite. Again, we had the 80th anniversary that did become everybody's kind of main Captain America figure or favourite Captain America figure, and then we saw that 20th anniversary one released just a few weeks ago, which a lot of people are jumping on and saying that this is going to replace their 80th anniversary version. He's been a very popular one over the years. We obviously had the worthy Captain America as well, which was the exclusive figure that people chased after a lot, that came from the MCU. And we've had various different versions of him in like stealth armor and whatnot. So yeah, so in 4th place with 42 figures is Captain America. And now into the top 3. In 3rd place with a total of 44 figures, I'm not going to lie, this one really did surprise me, is Wolverine. I honestly thought Wolverine was going to rank in 2nd or 1st place just because it seemed like at one point we were getting Wolverine after Wolverine. We've had him shirtless in the most recent box set. We've had him with like a cowboy hat and a vest. We've had him with a jacket. We've had him with ripped cow. We've had him with a yellow cow, an orange cow. We've had every single version of Wolverine. We've had him as Weapon X. But yeah, I was really surprised with those numbers. He seems to have been a staple part of every kind of year. There seems to have been at least 1 or 2 Wolverines released each year. And if you look right back to the very first wave, obviously we got a couple there as well. And more recently we got the exclusive box set, Wolverine box set, which came with a Wolverine with his top off, because why not? But yeah, in 3rd place, Wolverine. So in 2nd place, with an amazing 60 figures released in total, is Iron Man. I'm not surprised. Iron Man we seem to get all the time. and there seems to be kind of a different version of Iron Man released. Now, the one thing that I will say about Iron Man is I am a big fan of the Iron Man collection. You can see kind of like my MCU Iron Man collection there just behind me. But the nice thing is because of the nature of kind of Iron Man having a hall of armor for all of his suits, it's an easy one to collect because you're not kind of replicating the figure. You kind of can display it with the idea that the suits are all empty and there's one Tony Stark that goes into all of them. So as a collector, I don't mind that we've had so many Iron Men because they're ones that are easy to display. What I am a little bit disappointed about is when we get the same version of a different version of the same figure. So we got a lot of the Endgame and Infinity War Iron Man figures, for example, you know, one with a light up chest, one with accessories, etc, etc, and they're a little bit more difficult to display. So in first place, with a huge 73 figures in total produced, it should come as no surprise that it is, of course, everybody's favourite web slinger, Spider-Man. Now, there have been so many variations of Spider-Man over the years, it's hard to actually pick a favourite. We've had an abundance of MCU Spider-Man based on Tom Holland, and obviously based on the series of films from the MCU, but then we've also been spoilt for choice with comic book Spider-Man as well. All the different suits that you could ask for, as well as variations of characters, even though they weren't counted in this tally. We've had some really obscure characters like Spider-Ham. I think my favourite one easily is the most recent retro carded Spider-Man, just because of the new articulation and a new body mould. But there is obviously a whole bunch of Spider-Man figures due to come out as well. I'm sure at Hasbro Pulse Con we are going to see some new ones, and if the rumours about the film, the No Way Home film, are true, then I'm sure we are going to get the long-awaited updated figures based on the Andrew Garfield and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man as well. That would be fantastic if we could get some updated figures of those to go alongside our Tom Holland MCU figures, then I'd be a very happy collector indeed. So that's it. So that is my top 10, the most produced Marvel characters in the Marvel Legends line since the beginning in 2002 right through until now. Now, as I've said a number of times in this video, I'm sure that Hasbro Pulse Con is going to show us some new figures, and maybe those tallies will change a little bit, but at the moment Spider-Man is well out there in the lead, holding that top spot. Thanks very much for tuning into the channel, it's very much appreciated. If you have enjoyed this video, then please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things. Don't forget to check me out over on Instagram at Jacobs_toys. Obviously any support over there is very much appreciated. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Oh, yeah.